Hello, welcome back. It is week 143 on Out on That Line. I'm Jeff with my co-host Alex. As always, Alex, how you doing this week?
Jeff, I promise not to criticize you again. We did a little off-air bit where I was roasting Jeff a little bit, and I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to keep my comments strictly to the episode and the album. Jeff, how are you doing today after that
I'm
public humiliation?
it was very public, and you have the recording, so I guess you have blackmail forever if
It's
you
very
want
true.
it. Yeah, it's not to give you any ideas, but you have it there if you ever need it. So we're going to be talking about Vampire Weekend and their new album, Only God Was Above Us. I want to make sure I got that right, so I looked. So Vampire Weekend, we'll talk about that in a bit. What I do want to talk about, though, is the Tyler Childers concert that I went to last week. That was why we've skipped a week, why we had to wait so long for this new episode. I went and saw Tyler Childers, and it was glorious. It was fantastic. One of the best concerts that you'll see these days. So I absolutely recommend if you get an opportunity, especially on this tour right now. We saw him at the Moody Center, which is a basketball arena. It's where the University of Texas plays, and I think the G League team for the San Antonio Spurs, the Austin Spurs, plays there too. And then they do all the big concerts. So Bruce Springsteen played there. I think that's where Harry Styles played. So that's where they host the big artists, when they come to Austin. It's a pretty good venue. Saw Bruce Springsteen there. So far, so good with that venue. I think they've pulled in good artists. But that Tyler Childers show, the visuals, the effort that he put in for the show, just absolutely fantastic. Played a lot of songs from the newer albums, Rustin' in the Rain, the Can I Take My Hounds to Heaven. So played quite a few of those, the old time screaming and shouting, go up telling on the mountain.
Way of the Triune God.
That song just absolutely bangs live, and he knows it, and the band knows it, and they absolutely lean way into it because it goes. He played I Swear to God, which is one of my favorite songs by him. Just a fantastic little honky tonk mover and groover. He also played White House Road, which from what I understand, he doesn't really do that a lot, because that song is very much like glorifying drug use and abuse and everything. And I think he's kind of off that train. But he played the song and it ripped. I mean, everything he did up there was fantastic. Took some good videos. I think I sent you one, obviously as good as a cell phone video can be, I suppose. But it was just overall great, and highly recommend if you get an opportunity, go see him, especially on this concert, like this tour, if you can. Otherwise, hopefully he continues to put out albums and continues to just tour like this, because I'll go every single time.
How many times have you seen him now?
This was twice. This was second time.
Oh, why do I feel like you'd seen him a bunch before?
I wish I've seen him a bunch.
Boy, did I get my friggin' wires crossed. And I tell you what, there's been a lot of times that has happened to me. And these are well-documented incidents. And if I had to go ahead and guess where these incidents are documented, it'd be right here at youtube.com/C/out on that line. Folks, you got to stay with me on this one, okay? A lot of you don't seem to understand the message and therefore cannot get with the program. So let me be serious for a minute and implore you, nay, empower you to become your very best self at youtube.com/C/out on that line. Subscribe, like videos, comment on videos. It's a pretty simple, straightforward process. I say you give it a shot at youtube.com/C/out on that line.
I think this deserves every bit of this score.
I felt like maybe not my best work though.
So I think you've definitely got cooking better than that one, but the transition into that one was, I recognized it and still appreciated how clever it was.
Thank you.
It didn't dupe me. It was like I was in on the experience as well. You know, it was that's the best kind of art, right? Is when you're not telling somebody something, you're not showing them something, you're having them experience something. That's exactly what you just did for us out there.
You're feeling them something, and I'm glad I could give that to you
Yeah,
and to all of you.
that was fantastic. That very, very well done. Um, now I will say, I think we have to give a shout out to everybody that might be here because they watched the Beyonce review, which
Yeah.
did get a big response, and wanted to say thanks everybody. If you were one of those folks, I think 1,500 people, which for a podcast episode for us is pretty good. I we've had some reaction videos that have done quite well, but definitely for podcast numbers, that's right up there. Might even be the best.
You know?
So yeah, we appreciate that. All the comments, like there was some good interactions in there, so we appreciate that. But we are going to talk about something entirely different this week, and that's going to be Vampire Weekend and their new album, Only God Was Above Us. So I realized my familiarity with Vampire Weekend basically begins and ends with the song, and I didn't even know the name of it. I just knew what song it is, and it's A Punk, and it's the one that it's the
Oh, okay. Yep.
like that's the only one I think I knew by them. I think I believed I was more familiar with them than I was. So this album was a whole new experience for me. I will go ahead and say that.
I had a similar experience because I've never heard that song. The song that I knew is called Bryn. And it's the same kind of thing where it's like,
Mhm.
that's fun, great stuff, top notch. That was really like the only one, that and Sunflower are really the only two Vampire Weekend songs that I can immediately conjure. I also thought I had heard more than I actually have, but I think I might have just been confusing it with like Bright Eyes and Jack's Mannequin and a bunch of other bullshit. I had it in my head that Vampire Weekend was like unpalatably hipster, which I think if my research suggests is correct, it might have been. They seem like boat shoe guys.
Mhm.
Like they're very aware that they come from like a privileged background and they make music that kind of reflects it without being like shitty and snotty. Um, and I think that was one of the big things that I gravitated toward in this album is that it had a strong point of view and it wasn't preachy. And it was musically very fascinating. And we'll get into that.
We will get into that. That
Oh, fuck. Oh, my
yeah,
God.
so the thing is, this is going to be the kind of thing, like I know how popular they are. Like there's like for indie people, like if you love this kind of thing, then you're going to love Vampire Weekend. And I do enjoy that other song, and you absolutely know that song. The second you listen to it, you're going to know what song it is. If there's like indie song playlist that you've ever listened to in your life, it's on there. I
Well, I
promise
know
you.
it, but I didn't know that's what it was called. I couldn't
I
pick it
didn't
out of the
either.
lineup.
I wouldn't have even, but then I thought about it. I was like, I knew it was them, but had never once considered what that song was called. I just knew it was them and I knew what song that is because it was so ubiquitous. It was on like video game soundtracks, like it was everywhere when it came out. It still kind of is. Um, so I figured that we were going to get a lot of that. And we did get a lot of that. And there was some things that I liked on this album. I will specifically say kind of in the middle part of the album was where I found most of the things that I liked because I think those were I guess the most kind of straightforward songs, like the straightforward rock songs and really kind of middle through to the end. What I found that I disliked on the album, and it's not that I think they couldn't do it or they didn't do it right, is the amount of just like crazy experimentation where it's like I love a good amount of chaos in some music, but I like it to be like emotional chaos. You know what I mean? Or kind of like an unstable feeling chaos. I don't like it to be like a jazzy chaos where it's like, let's see just how many things we can like layer into this. And they sound good and they work. And it's like you can, the people that want to dig through and like pick out, I just want to hear the bass line. I just want to hear the lead guitar. I just want to hear the drum line. The people that listen to music for that reason are going to love this because there's tons of that layering. Like it's all produced and put together very well. I think those sections of it, and I don't know if that's generally what they do in all of their music or their previous albums are kind of heavy on that stuff too. But specifically the first like handful of songs on the album, I really just don't think are ones I'd go back to. When you get to, which is Prep School Gangsters, I think is the first one that I think because it's the most similar to that kind of classic like indie sound versus the other kind of tangents the other ones go off into. So I found that the other parts of it like off-putting enough to like give me a generally kind of negative view of the album.
Interesting. Well, I once again have to reference the book that I'm reading, What It Sounds Like, written by Prince's audio engineer from the 80s, Susan Rogers. Very interesting. She ended up going back to school for neuroscience. So it's
Mhm.
like, I think I've pitched it before. It's the science of your listener profile and the music that you like. So there's another chapter. I talked about the one about authenticity. There's one that's exactly about this album, exactly about everything you were saying, where there's a bell curve of novelty and conventionality. And some people need something a little more familiar. Some people need something a little more daring. Some people need things on either extreme, like straight down the line classical, and then
Mhm.
like acid jazz. And then somewhere towards the middle, kind of riding the top of the curve, is this album. Because for me, the jazzy stuff didn't feel experimental at all. It felt like weirdly structured and planned for jazz without feeling like very ham-handed. Because it kind of, the way that they kind of threw stuff out there,
Mhm.
it was a kitchen sink approach, but it was very intentional. And I love the stuff like the stand-up bass and the stand-up piano and or the little grand piano thing. And then the use of the synth and the use of the distortion, it gave it a really unique sound that lent itself to doing a lot of different variations of the structure, especially.
Mhm.
Um, they're pretty like standard written pop songs right up until the end. But it's just all these like little inventive, they are a hook factory. The fucking synth part on classical will be playing in my brain the day that I die. Skidaloo-diddle-doo-doo,
Yeah.
skidaloo-diddle-doo-doo. I mean,
And
it's fantastic.
they really, I think, and that's the thing is I think I'm not going to sway anybody's opinion on Vampire Weekend with what I have to say about this. Like if you already love this band, I don't think anything I say about it is going to change that for you. Nor should it stop you from going to check out the album because I think it's just I can tell that it's put together well and I can tell that it's but I don't listen to any jazz. So, well that may sound like bland jazz to you, like I don't listen to any because I don't like jazz. So
Well, it's
anything that
not
sound
bland.
so but the so you're coming at it cuz it's like you like being able to pick that stuff apart. You like being able to I think you appreciate things that are a little more daring and experimental than I do. And so to me, like not being a jazz fan, it's hearing that I'm like, I can tell that this is probably very good, but it's not my cup of tea. So it was hard to appreciate that. But I did find, there were parts of those songs that because the entire song wasn't that style. And I think I'm talking specifically Ice Cream, like the first song, it was just it felt like I guess I just have to go back to the like it felt chaotic in like the wrong way for me. So and if that's kind of what their norm is and what they usually do, then it's probably just not going to be for me in general. But there's probably plenty of songs because there's I don't know, a good handful, 6 or 7 songs that I did like well enough on this. It's just like those spots that I didn't enjoy. It was just jarring enough for me. But it's interesting that if you do listen to jazz and it's like people that are going to have I think a broader spectrum of the music that they're going to give like a real chance to um this is what they're going to love because I think it's pulling from influences that are like things that are not going to be a mainstream kind of influence. It's the kind of people that get very curious about like where did this sound come from, what instrument is that, and using that to branch off. And like for that style of like thinker and in being a music fan, like this band is perfect for that I think.
Well, and the thing is, I don't even really listen to that much jazz. The kind of jazz that I listen to when I listen to it. I don't listen to a lot of any one thing. I'm all over the place. And because you're right, I'm on one side of the curve, and not to like pat myself on the back about my tremendous music taste, which, as the book taught me, is subjective, God damn it. So get over yourself. But I tend to like go to that side of the curve that's like, I kind of want to find people that are doing something weird and interesting. And I like, so like the kind of jazz that I do listen to when I get around to that is mostly like Japanese, like acid jazz for, or
Mhm,
not even acid jazz, but just like Japanese synth wave jazz from like the 80s. I wish I could remember the names of any of the guys. I should do a video on it because it's fucking awesome. There's
mhm,
the one guy that covers George Benson's Breezin', and it is smooth as all get out. It's why I like stuff like Prep. It's not necessarily jazz, but it's like jazz informed.
mhm,
So I could appreciate the little like weird jazzy flourishes, but I could also appreciate like the super Cypress Hill sounds that they
mhm.
put in. Like there were these like 90s hip hop moments that were very indicative of that New York City kind of privileged white kid upbringing they had, where it's like, yeah, we're gonna sit out here on the stoop in our boat shoes and rock
Yeah,
to this. We're hardcore.
and I gotta say, like, upset of the century that this band is not British.
I can see how you would say that.
Yeah, like, it's just everything about them just strikes me as British.
His name, Ezra Koenig,
That yeah, like,
you know?
it's super like, super European name, so yeah, I don't know. I think it's I think it's just it just comes down to, like, it's not for me, but the things that I did like, I thought were very good. Because 'cause I'm not gonna stop, like, when that other A-Punk song comes on, I'm not gonna turn it off because that's a great song. I don't think they're incapable of making music that I like. I think they just didn't do a lot of that on this album, I think overall.
So you were not a fan of the music, but let's talk about the lyrics and the
Mhm,
lyrical content. What did you think of
mhm.
that?
So, overall, what I could hear, and that was another issue I had, is when it was getting into these crazy moments, it was, like, tough without the lyric sheet in front of you to really hear anything of what he was saying.
He was kind of far back in the mix sometimes. I
Um,
did notice that too.
And so that maybe that was part of what made it difficult is it forced your focus onto the things that I wasn't enjoying instead of being able to focus on something that I maybe would have because when I did read through the lyrics, like he's a pretty clever songwriter. And I think he's like you said, he's a like can write a hook. Like and he knows when to do the little like oi oi type thing and that kind of like very punk rock sort of sneer. And then he knows how to be like that super shy, sweet, like kind of sounding indie kid. It's just so when the lyrics that I liked were songs like Classical, and the songs that I did not like the music for were the lyrics that I liked. Like the on Classical. So untrue, unkind, and unnatural, how the cruel with time becomes classical. Like it's just a very clever way of saying like history kind of marches along and it's amazing what you can get used to, right? I think is kind of the idea of what they're saying there. And that sort of line, that's part of why I'm so hesitant to say that like to just really like bash this album is because it's such a balance for me that the musical part of it was like jarring enough for me that it's pulling back on these other things that I really did like.
Interesting. Very interesting. Because I'm looking at some of these lyrics and I'm like processing through some of these songs in my head. And it's so fascinating. So I guess I just want to go through a couple of the songs and ask you what you
Mhm,
thought of them. So Classical, you said you like the lyrics better already.
mhm.
I know that walls fall, shacks shake, bridges burn, and bodies break. I mean, come on, it's great. But I also love the song because again, that absolute brain burrowing hook.
Mhm.
Fantastic. What did you think of Capricorn?
So that was probably I will say probably my least favorite song on the
Whoa.
on the album. So not just because of the lyrics, I think that one just specifically because of like I just the lyrics didn't grab me. So the chorus like Capricorn, the year that you were born, finished fast, and the next one wasn't yours. Too old for dying young, too young to live alone, sitting through centuries for moments of your own. I felt like it's still like it sounds. the lyrics flow and they sound good. I just didn't feel like there was a lot in them with that. Like it sounded very much just, okay, I need to express this thing. How do I do that? And it just like that part of it sounded very generic to me, like that kind of song. So like I didn't have the reason I could find, I think, something to like in just about every song on there. I think Capricorn was one of maybe the few that I really couldn't find a thing that I really enjoyed about it.
Well, and I'll give you this because I enjoy the song, but
Mhm,
it feels as dick as this gonna sound, insubstantial.
mhm,
It's definitely not like one of my favorites, and yet at the same time, there's something so catchy. Again, it's the chorus you just did. And you say it's not like doing much of a reach. And to me, I'm glad it's not. If he had like stuffed himself up his own ass to try to deliver the message and be ham-handed about it and more clever, I feel like this is the like perfect amount of cleverness. And I think out of anything in the song, it's my favorite part. It's so Beatles that it
mhm,
hurts. And I'm not even like a big Beatles dick rider, but there's just that like distinct, I would even go so far as to say like John Lennon songwriting quality. I can hear him just like
mhm,
Capricorn, like
mhm,
right on the money. And sometimes when you compliment someone for sounding like someone else, you're not saying like, wow, good job aping your material. It's a compliment.
mhm,
You've evoked and pushed a sound that is demonstrably wonderful and successful. So sometimes it's a compliment and sometimes it is a cop out. This one felt a little too Beatles for me to be like thoroughly enjoyable, but there's always something to salvage because that chorus, the lyrics for me, right on the money. It's so funny. We had the exact
mhm.
opposite reaction to this fucking album.
And it's, I think this could be the most, and this doesn't even feel contentious, but this could be the most contentious like disagreement we've had about any album, because I really, when I was listening through this, I got through my second listen and I was like, I think Alex is really gonna like this album a lot. And I just wasn't getting into it. And I wasn't overly like, I didn't hate it. You know what I mean? It just like, it's just not something I'm gonna go back to. It's just, it's for some reason there might be a couple songs as they come up on my playlist and stuff. I'll be fine with it. But um, I think the songs that are probably the most basic ones on here, in that if someone's like a real Vampire Weekend fan, probably like the least, is was it Gen X Cops and Prep School Gangsters are the two that I think I like the best. And if
Mhm.
someone's like a fan of them being experimental and stuff, are the ones that people those folks would probably like the least.
No, Prep School Gangsters is like very identifiably like Vampire Weekend to me. Again, from a limited pool, it's the only thing I know, and this sounded like that. I think it typifies their sound, and the melody on the chorus of that one is just, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love that, and I love the staging of it. I love the lyrics of it. I love the story of it. I literally have a note here under the song "Connect" that says, "I know Jeff typically doesn't love shit like the Shins, but it feels like these songs are more chaotic and grungy and less precious about it. This one feels like it has very nostalgic fragments that keep triggering these different kinds of introspection. And then you have an upright piano that's washed out and distorted, and that thing is putting in some fucking work. This is the loosest one yet and appropriate for someone so confused. I love the ghost hits on the drums. Fuck, this was one. Oh, that was all gobbledygook. So the kind of ends anticlimactically because it doesn't mean anything. Instrumental mess.
Yeah, that so Connect I did like specifically. So that was an upright piano. I was wondering what that like distorted sound. I could never figure it out. I was like, it's something with strings distorted, but I was like, that doesn't sound like a guitar to me. And so I was wondering, that's cool that he did that. But that sound specifically, I was like, that's cool. If that should be something, because you could do like a metal song with that kind of sound on your piano. Like that would be sick. That would
Yeah,
be
you should
so cool to do that.
contact Paleface and tell him to do it.
Ooh, there's an idea. They're coming to play. There's a big Texas Metal Fest.
Oh my God, I
Yeah,
bet there
happening
is.
happening just down the road from me, Memorial Day weekend. So Paleface, Fugitive is playing the same day as Paleface on a Friday, which I have off.
Mhm.
Let's go. Um, and it's just down the road at the Fire Lounge
Well,
on South Congress Street.
the beloved Fry Hill
Yeah.
Lounge.
Yeah, if you're there, say hi, you know. So back to the important things, the album. So, I think where were we at? Was it Gen X Cops or the which
Well,
one were we
let's
talking?
I'm looking at
Connect. I
Gen
think we were
X.
talking about Connect.
Yeah.
So again, that piano, very cool. That was probably of the first like bunch of songs, probably the most bearable for me. You know, and I think just strictly saved because of that piano. Like it was such a I've never heard a sound like that in a song before, so it just sounded cool to me.
That I can't even call that a backhanded compliment. That was a bullhammer elbow to the nuts. I could suffer these songs with reasonable dignity. Oh man. All right. What is another one? Gen X Cops. Let's talk about that one
Uh-huh.
because you keep coming back to that.
So I guess just because it's like I don't know, it's kind of like taken it's like the anti-government, like anti-authority kind of message. Like this is probably I feel like the most punk rock song on here just because of the subject matter that they're using. Um, and I guess I can get some lyrics specifically here. It wasn't built for me, it's your academy, but in my time you taught me how to see each generation makes its own apology. It's just like I appreciate that kind of perspective of history is because I feel like there's also an acknowledgement that like our generation is also going to do that to the Gen Zers. You know what I mean? So like we're going to say, "Oh, we had it so tough." Like we're going to do that we had to walk 15 miles uphill both ways to school every day to them. We already are. So I think it's something what I appreciate is just how straightforward like kind of a punk ethos that song was. um, I appreciated that it still sounded like Vampire Weekend because I like how they sound when they do those like indie songs. Like I think they crush those. I can understand that that might not be what they want to always do, and they like being able to go off the rails a little bit. But I think a song like Gen X Cops is, if you're gonna get somebody into this album, this is probably one of the songs that'll do it.
Well, and it has I maybe it's over the top to call it profound, so maybe we'll just say striking, but each generation makes its own apology. That's the germ that I grab onto in that song. Each generation makes its own apology. It reminds me of Land of Confusion. My generation will put it right, and then they don't. They whiff hard.
Hmm.
Especially the weird music video that they had where it was like fucking Pete Entwistle. They do a puppet of him. You ever seen that music video?
Oh yeah,
Oh my god, nightmare
yeah,
fuel.
yeah.
So yeah, I think it's the same sentiment where everybody starts out with these grand ambitions and a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to change things, and inevitably, you can't fight City Hall. Bless your pea picking little heart. You can try, I can try, we can all try. It is what it is, and people kind of settle into that kind of apathy, and then you're right. Like the next generation comes along, and they're like, "Well, you don't understand what I've been through." So it's just like an interesting concept is this like intergenerational angst and inability to relate to one another and like cycle of fucking each other over and having to apologize for it. It's an interesting thing to fit into like a 3.5 minute song. And that's the kind of pop indie novelty type thing that I really appreciated about this album. Again, it had a POV, it was nostalgic, it was introspective, but it wasn't up its own ass. It wasn't being preachy about any kind of
Hmm.
message. It was very observational, very conversational.
And I think I guess that's just how much I didn't like the actual like musical composition of this album because reading through the lyrics and stuff, I think it's exactly as you say. None of it feels preachy. It's very much just like looking at things and just kind of saying how it is. Understanding your role in why things are messed up. I think the ability to acknowledge that if you're going to say things are wrong, to like not try to absolve yourself of any responsibility of why they're wrong. I think that's always kind of a healthy way to look at things. And I think again, the songs where the music jived with me, then I loved them. They were great. The songs where it didn't jive with me, it completely just like took me out of it. And I don't know if I don't know if there's been an album that's been like that, where it's really just one thing was so off for me that it really kind of threw everything off.
Okay, so we got 10 songs. We're playing with 100% here. What
Mhm.
percentage of this album could you not tolerate?
Probably half.
Half.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I would say the first 3 for sure. Didn't like those. Mary Boone did not like, thought that was a useless song. Um, so I guess that so I guess like 40% absolutely. Connect would be a maybe, I guess. So like 45%, let's say.
Okay. We're dipping.
Yeah. So and again, so I look at that and the kind of albums where I say like stream it or buy it, I probably like 80% or better of the material on the album. There might be a song or two I don't like or a lyric or two that I don't like, but it generally like, might not be perfect, but there's more there that I like than don't. And I think with this one, if I'm thinking of that there was 6.5 songs that I liked on the album, a 65, it might get you a degree at Johnson State, but it does not get you a stream it on out on that line. I'm gonna say skip it.
Wow. Okay, Jeff with an
Yeah.
emphatic statement. He's skipping
Mhm.
Vampire Weekend. I would liken this album to building a house, a very basic, well built, structured house, a conventional house. What do you think of when you conjure a house in your head? A Victorian, a ranch, all that. No, don't overthink it. It's a house. It's just a regular old house. And they build that. And then they fill it with the weirdest, incompatible shit that you've ever seen, picked up from yard sales and antique stores. There's like a spooky taxidermy moose head and some kind of weird rug that looks like it got burned up at some point, and 70s decor and movie posters and shit that doesn't even go together. Like, they create these very conventionally structured pop songs, indie songs. What's the difference between, where's the line between indie and pop, I ask you? But they're very structured songs. They're very patterned, but they allow for a lot of digression and for a lot of things that you can add on top. So stuff like the upright piano, the stand-up bass, the distortion, it all goes hand in hand for me with these like beautiful melodies, these great hooks, and a very standard like A B C A type
Mhm.
structure, like a conventional Clive Davis pop song, but with all of this room to just have these fun digressions and explore these different things. And again, it wasn't up its own ass. It felt like just listening to someone give you your POV. It's kind of like David Byrne. I think David Byrne puts a little more stank on it and he loves his songs about buildings and food. But there's the same kind of like draw you in conversational nature to it that made this whole thing very accessible to me as someone who had never listened to a whole Vampire Weekend album, let alone a lot of Vampire Weekend. So therefore, I say buy this one.
Oh, this
Going strong.
is this the first buy it and skip it episode we've done?
I think it is, because usually one of us is like, it was okay, stream it. And then the other one goes, it was okay, dump it.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. That's very
Wow.
interesting that we had that drastic, like there was plenty of things we agreed on about the album, but there was just the music.
It's a polarizing
So
album.
if Vampire Weekend wants me as a fan, so they need to improve on the musical side of things. Okay. So I think we'll expect better next time once they watch this episode.
Duly noted, Ezra Koenig, duly noted.
Well, Alex, did you have anything else this week that you wanted to talk to the people about?
I don't think so. This was a crackerjack episode. I think
Yeah,
it'll go down in the lore as one of the more chewy conversations we've had about the art of music here on Out on That Line at youtube.com/c/out on that line. Ergo, I have nothing else to say. I think the episode speaks for itself. Jeff?
perfect. Until next time.